All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kobe Kushner. I'm an analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. Thank you to WGM for sponsoring this session. We're about to hear from Honey Badger Silver. This is a pure play silver company. They're assembling a portfolio of assets with the goal of attaining maximum exposure to silver, with assets comprising large early stage exploration properties, resource stage projects, and silver royalties and streams. They currently got projects in the Yukon and Thunder Bay. Ed and Chad, you got about 15 minutes, which will follow with 5 minutes of Q&A. Viewers, ask your questions at any time and take it away, Ed.
Okay, well, thank you, Kobe, for the introduction. Yes, my name is Ed Thorose. I'm president of Honey Badger, and I'm joined by Chad Williams, who's the chairman of the company. This presentation is going to be fairly short because our story is fairly simple one. What Honey Badger is essentially is an investment vehicle for those investors who think that the silver price is going to go up dramatically. And our view is that silver is going to double or triple in price from where it is today, perhaps reaching $100 an ounce. And towards that end, we've been very busy over the last 12 months since we've taken over management of the company, doing everything to position Honey Badger so that it benefits from an increase in the silver price when and if that happens. So we're not your typical exploration company as you would conventionally be known, in the Canadian junior space. We like to think of ourselves almost like an ETF or an exchange traded fund, whereby we are aggregating assets, silver assets in our case. And for those of you who don't know, an ETF is essentially an aggregation of assets with exposure to a certain commodity or metal. Typically, ETFs are passive and sort of move up and down in value over time as the market evolves for that particular commodity or asset. But in our case, we are doing something a little bit different, something that's never been done. We consider ourselves an active ETF, whereby we will be acquiring silver assets over time, but also selling them at the right time, potentially spinning off streams and royalties, and also doing work on the assets at the right times to add value to these assets that we're assembling. And so we're essentially targeting three categories of assets. The first would be district scale silver properties with high grade silver. And we already have a number of properties that fall in this category, including our Thunder Bay property, which you mentioned, which is a historic silver camp in Ontario. Also, just about a year ago, we acquired three silver properties in the Yukon, one of which is called Plata. It's a very high grade silver property on which we did some work last summer, on which we'll discuss in a little bit of time. The second asset category that we're looking for are assets with ounces in the ground, so with resources. We don't have any assets in this category at this time, but as I've mentioned, we've been very busy over the last 12 months looking for things to acquire, and you can expect some news on this front in the not too distant future. And the third category of assets, sort of the holy grail, as Chad says, are cash flowing royalties and streams. These would be the most expensive to acquire. We don't have any cash flowing royalties or streams at the moment, but I'd say our objective ultimately is to get to the point, to grow to the point where we can acquire these in an accretive manner. So in a nutshell, our thesis is that silver price is going up, and we're doing everything to position this company so that when silver goes up, we stand to benefit from that move. And as Chad always says, there's two ways to create value in the mining industry. One is by doing work and drilling and defining ounces, finding ounces. And the second way is through M&A. And by acquiring assets in an accretive basis and an NAV per share basis. Our focus over the last 12 months is on the latter, on M&A, as opposed to drilling. And so we're very conservative with our cash. We want to preserve the cash we have for doing deals. So I'll skip slide 3 for now and just give you a quick snapshot of our capital structure. We are obviously publicly listed on the TSX and over the counter in the US as well. We currently have about a $15 million market cap and just under $2 million in cash. We have a very low burn rate. Eric Sprott is one of our major shareholders with about 13% of the company. Chad Williams also has a very large stake in the company. Yeah, and so I think from a valuation perspective, I mean, $15 million market cap, there's still a lot of upside to this company. And I also want to talk a little bit about the board and the management. Honey Badger, the person behind in the vision of Honey Badger is Chad Williams. And he's, I think it's fair to say he's very well known in the Canadian mining industry. Chad was essentially started off his career as a mining engineer and was a top-ranked mining analyst for many years in the 2000s at TD Bank and other Canadian brokerages. Then in 2008, in the height of the financial crisis, he became CEO of Victoria Gold, which at the time was a $10 million company. And through mergers and acquisitions, grew Victoria Gold, culminating with the acquisition of the Dublin Gulch project in the Yukon, which today has the Eagle Gold Mine, which is producing gold at 200,000 ounces per year. So Chad grew Victoria Gold from a $10 million company to a $500 million company during his tenure through M&A. And then in 2012, he left Victoria Gold and started off Red Cloud and Red Cloud Securities. At the time, it was just a very tiny mining advisory firm, and he grew Red Cloud from 3 or 4 people to the brokerage house that it is today with dozens of employees. It's basically a staple of the Canadian mining capital market scene, and it's raised billions of dollars for junior mining companies in Canada over the last few years. So incredible track record of success. And Chad basically took over the management of Honey Badger just over a year ago because of this belief in silver and this vision for silver and of creating this essentially an investment vehicle for silver assets and poised to grow when silver prices take off. Before I talk about the other folks on management, I'll provide a bit of color on our board as well. On our board, we have Brian Briggs, who is a mining engineer based in Colorado, in Ouray, which is a silver mining city in Colorado. He comes from 3 generations of miners that have been involved with the silver industry in Colorado for decades. He himself has built and run a number of mines in North America, including silver mines. He's a deeply respected mining engineer with a lot of experience. Doug Eaton is a veteran Yukon geologist, arguably one of the most knowledgeable geologists in the Yukon. He's been active there since the 1970s, knows probably all the deposits and showings in the Yukon and the BC as well as anybody. And he's a partner at Archer Cathro, which is one of the premier geological consulting firms in the Yukon. And Doug has been advising us on the technical side, and we've been working with Archer Cathro geologists with the work we've been doing in the Yukon. Also, we have John Hill, who is also a veteran mining analyst who's US based. He has a deep capital markets connections in the US on the mining side. He's the chairman of the Denver Gold Group, which hosts the Denver Gold Show. And has a lot of expertise on the macroeconomic side as well, especially on silver and gold, and is deeply connected in the in the capital markets mining space in the US. So a very, very strong board who share the vision, who believe that silver is going up, and are helping us tremendously in terms of getting us ideas in terms of deals, looking at M&A opportunities and helping evaluate those opportunities. And then in terms of management, we have Donna McLean, who's our CFO. She has many years of experience as a CFO for Canadian mining companies and exploration companies. Pompeo Gallardo, who is a banker, a lot of experience with debt and royalties and streams. He was CFO of Chieftain Metals for a while, and he was also a banker at Red Cloud. And an important thing to point out about Pompeo is that he is Peruvian. He has deep connections with the Peruvian mining scene. He went to school with many of the people that are in charge of mining in Peru, as well as connections throughout South America. So Pompeo is bringing us lots of interesting ideas in that part of the world. And myself, I'm a geologist by background. I have 10 years of experience doing early stage exploration in Indonesia, Canada, and in Africa and the DRC. After my first 10 years of my career, I joined Victoria Gold in 2010 and really have been doing corporate development for the last 12 years of my career. First with Victoria Gold for 5 years, where I was busy with the sale of their Nevada assets, but also evaluating assets for acquisitions all over North America with them. And then I joined Red Cloud on the banking side and as an analyst for a few years. And then Chad asked me to join him at Honey Badger about a year ago to help take this company forward. And yeah, we've all been very busy over the last 12 months, mostly focused on M&A. We've looked at, I can say without exaggeration, over 100 different assets to various levels of detail. We've come close to pulling the trigger on a couple, but had decided not to, just for various reasons. We've been very rigorous in terms of our due diligence. But I can tell you we're far along on a couple of deals and stay tuned for more news to come. Yeah, so that's sort of the management and board. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Plata now. As I mentioned, we did a bit of work on Plata this past last summer, actually in 2021, a very modest surface sampling and mapping program. We didn't spend more than $200,000 doing this. The results of this program were truly spectacular. We encountered incredibly high grades of silver over the showings which we sampled. And just a bit of color on Plata. So silver was discovered at Plata in the 1960s, and it was explored through the 60s, 70s, and 80s very intermittently. It is a remote property and so more difficult to access. If it had been closer to infrastructure, it probably would be much more advanced than it is right now. But the work that was done during those years identified many dozens of showings, silver showings on the property over many multiples of kilometers of ground. It's truly a district scale property with high grade showings all over the place. Not only that, but also very small scale silver mining took place during those years at Plata, intermittently again, but some 300,000 ounces of silver were produced from a number of the showings and at incredibly high grades. When I say high grades, I mean 1,000 grams per ton silver to 10,000 grams per ton silver. So kilograms per ton of silver was mined. I mean, on very small scales, small tonnages, but very high grades. Yeah, and so I think the other really important message with Plata is that geologically, it's a dead ringer. It's identical to the Keno Hill Silver District, which occurs in the Yukon as well. Keno Hill is some 200 kilometers to the west of Plata, but in the same setting and the same rocks. Geologically, these two districts are virtually identical. The Archer Cathro geologists that did the work at Plata this summer, they know Keno Hill very well. They've worked there over many years, and they say these two systems are very similar. I think most importantly, at Plata, just as at Keno Hill, you have two pulses of mineralization. The first is a gold-rich silver system of northwest veins that's very high grade. And we see that at the P3 zone and the P4 zone. It occurs along an 800-meter long corridor, and it's fairly continuous. It's seen some drilling in the past, and that drilling suggests that this zone extends to at least 500 meters down dip, but it's minimal drilling in relation to, say, the Keno Hill district. So a lot more work has to be done, but we think it has tremendous potential. And then you also have a second system of veins that are trending northeast. These veins don't have gold in them, but they're very silver rich, along with very base metal rich, high grades of lead and zinc as well. And on slide, this slide, we have some of the results from our work from last summer. And you can see, for example, some of the grades we had at the P4 zone. Channel samples, a meter to 2 meters wide, with grades of 1,000 to 4,000 grams per ton silver, and high levels of lead and zinc as well. And similarly, at our P2 zones, we had meter wide veins, not much gold, but very high grades of silver, again over 1,000 grams per ton silver, and 10 to 40% lead and zinc content in those samples. So these were phenomenally high grade values, probably as good as anything that's come out in the markets over the last little while. Definitely, top decile values. And as I said, I mean, Plata is an early stage property. It has seen a fraction of the work of the Keno Hill district. I mean, Keno Hill literally has hundreds of thousands of meters of drilling that's gone into it. It's produced 200 million ounces of silver. Plata has seen a fraction of this work, but we think it still has a huge potential. I'll also provide a bit of color on our Thunder Bay property. We have 20,000 hectares of ground in Thunder Bay, and this is also a historic silver camp that was discovered in the 1800s. It was active for about 20 years in the 1800s and produced something like 5 million ounces of gold from a number of very high grade, incredibly high grade silver mines. And then the district was sort of forgotten by time. Silver prices fell, and at some point people discovered the cobalt camp in Ontario, and the focus shifted to the cobalt camp, and then huge silver production came out of the cobalt camp. And this district was forgotten by time, and really no work has been done on it since the 1800s, with maybe minimal exploration work a few years ago. But we're holding on to Thunder Bay. We think it's got huge promise as well. No plans to do work there in the near future, but we think it's got enormous promise. And again, it falls under that category 1 class of asset that we have, a district scale properties with huge potential. I'm not sure how we're doing for time, but
you got 2 minutes left for Q&A.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll just maybe finish off with the conclusion. So yeah, just I guess to summarize, our strategy is to acquire silver assets. Think of us as a portfolio of silver assets. Right now we have district scale properties with very high grade silver. We're working on acquiring silver assets with ounces in the ground. And our objective ultimately is to get cash flowing streams and royalties. It'll take time to get there, but that's our objective. And of course, the whole objective of doing this is to do it in an accretive way, in a non-dilutive way, to preserve value for our existing shareholders. And the message really is that we're just getting going. We've just been here for about a year, but please watch this space because we want to grow this company. I think that's basically the presentation, Kobe.
Great. So we'll move on to some Q&A then. You guys are in the M&A phase. Where are you guys looking to acquire your next assets? Can you give us some hints as to location?
Sure. We've been looking mostly focused on safe mining jurisdictions. We've been looking in the Yukon. We've been looking in Ontario, in Nevada. We've been looking in Chile. We've also been looking in Peru somewhat. Those are the main areas we've been looking at. Also Mexico, but less so in Mexico. And in the States as well in general, not just Nevada, but other parts of the States as well.
Okay, we have time for maybe one more question. If anyone wants to to chat about the silver market. Why are you guys so bullish on silver right now?
I don't know if Chad is on the line. Chad, would you like to answer that question, why we are bullish on silver?
Sure. Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons. We believe precious metals are going to rise in general. Gold should do well, silver should do well as precious metals, as global currencies lose their value relative to hard assets. We're already seeing some of that. But silver has additional and very specific positive demand uses for silver, like in technology, solar cells. It's very good to as an antibacterial, antivirus metal. It's used in many applications. So unlike gold, which is essentially mined and stored for safekeeping, silver is consumed, and the demand for silver is increasing every year. Many would argue that silver is in a very large deficit. There's just not enough silver being made to satisfy demand, and we think that will continue. Every electric vehicle, for example, uses a significant amount of silver. Silver is the world's most conductive metal, so there's lots of electric uses for it. It's a bit expensive, obviously very expensive relative to copper, but in very specific applications, silver is used. There's every reason to think that there's going to be more demand and supply. Mine supply is going down. It's very difficult to bring a new mine into production with permitting challenges, labor shortfalls, all kinds of other issues. So, I can go on and on for hours about this, but in a very short time, that's why we like it.
For sure. Look, guys, thanks for the presentation. There's very few pure play silver companies out there, in my view. So thanks, guys, for that. Next up, we have Reyna Silver and Libero Copper and Gold.
Thank you, Kobe. Thanks for hosting.
Well, thanks, Kobe.